to Good Morning Outdoors, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the outdoor hospitality industry. From campgrounds and RV parks to glamping, outdoor resorts, adventure travel, and ecotourism, we'll be discussing all things outdoor travel and hospitality, so join us on Good Morning Outdoors every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, everyone. Obviously, this is a little bit of a special episode, as you can see, with Matt and I together here in Syracuse. So really great to be with you today and do this on site. It's not often we get to see each other in person.
Yeah. How's it feel to be a central New Yorker?
It's nice. Made a little bit of a move over the last couple of days, and yeah, it's different than Lake George for sure. But enjoying it so far. We've had a little bit of rainy weather happening, but really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, welcome. It's fun to have you down the road a little bit at a new endeavor, a new campground business endeavor, which is always fun to get involved with new people and new relationships, new properties. This is a really cool one: waterfront marina, bar and restaurant. So really great hospitality business that we're super excited to get involved with and put our fingerprints on it. So more to come on that. Certainly, we've got some fun news this week, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And let us know where you're joining from in the chat. And what do you say? Let's dive in here.
Let's do it. Before we get to today's news, a couple of sort of announcements and housekeeping items. Know that the Campground Solutions West Summit happened this week. I think it's wrapping up today out west for all of our friends. Obviously, we in the Northeast have the NCA show that we go to, but that's a really great opportunity for folks in Nevada and California and everybody to get together. So hope everybody had a great show there. Next week, on a bit of housekeeping, you will be out at another great conference happening on April the 10th, next Thursday. We'll be having a special guest come and fill in. She's really excellent also here in New York. We'll kind of continue to tease that and share who our guest is going to be leading up to next week's episode. But Matt, just tell a little bit about the conference that's happening and why you'll be not joining us next week.
Yeah, super honored to be included in this event. Little, surprised and honored, I think, is an accurate way to put it. It's an event that's put on by Live Oak Bank at their headquarters in Wilmington, North Carolina. So we'll be staying for a couple nights in Wrightsville Beach. Intimate little event and setting with a few dozen industry executives in the outdoor hospitality industry. So some great programming and activities put on by Live Oak Bank. Shout out to the team there. They're one of the top lenders in our business, and honored to be invited. We'll certainly report back upon my return, and should be a lot of fun. Really honored to be included in that group. I think a bit sort of business cliche that I've taken a liking to over the years is that don't try to be the smartest or most knowledgeable or most successful person in a room. And I think I can confidently say that I will be none of those things in this room, and will be surrounded by really, really exceptional people who have had a ton of success in this industry. So nothing but a tremendous learning and networking experience and opportunity. So looking forward to that.
And then, Matt, the first few weeks, we've obviously talked about your property, Covered Bridge Campsite in the Catskills. We'll be doing some fun stuff there over the weekend, hosting a fly fishing guide with all of our team. Really great property on the Willowemont Creek for fly fishing. So always exciting to get out there, and hopefully, the weather will be nice. We'll be able to do some fishing. We'll have some photographers and a videographer in there to really capture the experience well. So it should be really, really fun coming up here in a couple days.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Bringing the family down, getting the team together, sort of dual purpose and benefit here of kicking off the season with some changes. We talked about the Jupe tents that we are planning to set up in the next couple months. Those have been ordered. We're working through the planning process there, getting those listed for some pre-leasing, and really want to up our game with the content, but also just great events to get the team together, doing a fun activity, doing some bonding, as is important in the hospitality industry to foster a real strong connection with the team. So all the above, great opportunity to do that this weekend with a local business partnership that we've forged with Trout Town Flies in the great town of Roscoe, New York, and a couple of the guides and the owner over there. So it should be a blast. We'll have some fun video and photos to share soon enough. And it's busy season. It's April. We're opening May 1st. Got a lot of work to do. Just working through all that. So it's been fun.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I'd say let's jump into the news this morning. We're going to start with a bit of a familiar mention. We mentioned Under Canvas last week in the news as well, and I think we've mentioned them a couple of times so far. They recently announced the launch of what they call their outdoor collection brand and the purchase of the property, the Fields of Michigan. Now, Under Canvas is kind of launching this. We've seen, similar kind of brand deals on the hotel side, and really, I think companies are finding the creative ways to grow their inventory and kind of create these brand partnerships. But with this, they're not only launching the collection, but also the purchase of this really spectacular property. So the Fields of Michigan is founded by Irene Jones. She built 19 keys on this kind of family-owned blueberry farm. Really deep, sort of experiential components to this property with like the farm to table dining and chef inspired meals. They've got wine tastings that are curated by a sommelier. Like everything like that is just something that is continuing to grow. Spa services down by the river, hiking trails. She's got a great kind of marketing and business background. And after 7 years of running the property, she's really kind of sold. So congrats to Under Canvas. Matt, what do you make of this deal and them really purchasing this property and launching their outdoor collection?
I love it. At a high level, I love it. I think it's great for the industry. Huge kudos and congrats to Irene and the team over there. They've put out a ton of great content and shared their story and shared how they've had such a great success with, as you noted, a very experience rich business and phenomenal property over there. I found it very interesting from the Under Canvas side, just that their name and their brand, they're super brand forward. I think it's a great move. I didn't necessarily expect it for them to kind of branch out with taking on other brand names. I'm a fan. The other property, Bar and Ranch, really really cool property, phenomenal property. My immediate takeaway was that it's a traditional lodge. It's kind of an old-timey lodge. There doesn't appear to be any canvas on the property. Maybe I'm a little too literal with that, but that's where my mind first went. Is the name of the company is Under Canvas. That's their identity, is these canvas tents, really having that immersive nature experience. It's just a different experience to anybody who's glamped in a tent with soft walls, especially those light, airy canvas tents. There's no noise barrier. Like you hear the trees moving, you hear the birds chirping, the wind rustling the leaves. It feels like you're outside. So it's just a different experience, a different look. I think it's good. I think it'll take some, kind of evolving to integrate that. Um, we seem to be in an era of kind of brand expansion and multiple brands living under the same roof, especially in our little corner of the hospitality industry. So encouraging this kind of activity is always good to see. It's fun. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to look at and imagine, how these things are going to evolve and change over time. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really smart for them to launch this as kind of a separate brand within the Under Canvas ecosystem in itself by branding it as this outdoor collection. I think it does preserve kind of their own properties. And of course, we talked last week about the $50 million kind of bolstered spend that they were doing within their own locations, adding 2 new locations out west, really expanding the lodging on their properties. So they're kind of getting the best of both worlds in the sense that they're making their properties better, continuing to own more high quality real estate and really great markets and locations. But the Fields of Michigan has been one of the most sought after glamping properties, and Irene is kind of one of has been one of the most sought after not only leaders in the space but women in the glamping space. You don't see too many properties that are wholly owned by a woman, especially on the glamping or more lodging side. So really, really cool property for Under Canvas to kind of bring into their ecosystem and obviously kind of purchase. But I think it does really, they do a good job of preserving the brand and kind of making it fit into the Under Canvas collection as well. So congrats to Irene, congrats to Under Canvas. Obviously, we'll continue to sort of see how they continue to grow. I'm sure they're not stopping at 2 locations for this outdoor collection. This is just what they've decided to launch with. But really, 2 great partners coming together, and excited to see how both of these properties continue to develop moving forward. The next story we'll talk about today really got on our radar from GMH Europe. So, Leo, thank you so much for mentioning this on that episode. If you caught that, they discussed a little bit about HolaCamp raising $10 million. Of course, this is a European-based company with locations mainly in Spain and Portugal. They've got 11 locations, founded back in 2023, and they've got some really big expansion plans on the horizon. They're forecasting or trying to hit about 30 million in revenue projected for this year in 2025. They're really discussed in the press release from them investments into data collection, booking engines, dynamic pricing, guest experiences. Of course, obviously continuing to grow their locations, their lodging, all of that stuff. But I think it's we talk a lot about consolidation here in the U.S. or the North American market. That for sure is a thing, kind of out in Europe as well. So with 11 locations, that is a lot for that kind of European market. So incredible growth so far. This is obviously a great investment from a capital firm to add another sort of 10 million to the fire here. Matt, how do you sort of we don't talk or obviously know very much about the European camping market from personal experience, but we talk to a lot of folks who are over there who have projects in the works or are continuing to do this. What does this sort of tell you about where things sit in the European camping market?
Really great question. How I look at this is that in Europe, this market of glamping and outdoor lodging, I wouldn't say camping, but on the higher end of the market with glamping and outdoor lodging, it's a far more mature market in industry in Europe than it is in the US. We just talked about Under Canvas, who is kind of viewed as the pioneers of American glamping. And they were founded around 2010, I think maybe 2009, which to us in America is a lifetime ago in the glamping world. And they cite their direct inspiration from actual safaris in Africa, and that's kind of where this was all born. And naturally, people who are located in Europe had more convenient access to safaris in Africa than people in America do for the most part. It's shorter flight. And so I think that's kind of the way oversimplified story here of, we're seeing these kind of investments. That's a significant chunk of change invested in a company that has 11 locations, all focused in Spain and Portugal. They've got a cool mix of cabins and bungalows and tent camping. So a pretty eclectic mix. Looks to be focused on coastal properties. You kind of have that beachy vibe, but encouraging. Love to see it. I think it just shows us the path that that is possible in America. We're seeing all these news stories where we're commenting on them ourselves in America, but it's really still the beginning. Even though we're 15 years into we're still at the beginning. There's still so much more to build out in the industry and figure out, and so many new players are jumping in, and they're going to have great stories. 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. So I'm excited. I love to see these things. I think they're kind of breadcrumbs for where we can take things in the U.S. So all encouraging and fun stuff.
Absolutely. And I love where the investment is going as well. I think focusing on the data, the tech, really getting the pricing right. They're being incredibly smart about it. This feels like the type of startup environment and really just company leadership that you really need to grow this into a larger brand and continue to get more locations. So, really encouraged by that fact that this is not just real estate and lodging that they're putting into, they're valuing the guest experience, they're valuing technology in how to continue to use better customer data to personalize experiences. That's the type of thing that they need. And going to be really excited to hopefully see more of these type of projects come up. But really amazing for HolaCamp. And who knows, maybe someday we'll get out there and see one of these 11 locations in person. The next story we've got today is a little bit of a fun one. I think we both kind of first saw this from Joel Holland, who we both know well, CEO of Harvest Host on LinkedIn. They had a little bit of a press release or an announcement, you should say, as well from the Harvest Host brand, but they announced what is called RV Rides by Harvest Host. So Uber and Lyft, look out, because there is now RV sharing or pooling kind of coming to the market. Obviously, most people probably know of, an RV share or Cruise America type of RV rental service that exists in the market today, where anybody can just sort of get it and who's new to RVing, doesn't own one, and see the country. They dropped a YouTube short with this announcement to kind of describe what this is, and it's really getting with a bunch of folks and pulling your RV from one place to another. I think it's a really interesting concept, I would say. The reaction was a little bit mixed, as far as some people were a little, kind of funny about it. What do you think, Matt? Is this going to take fire, or is this something that maybe a little bit too crazy for the time?
Really good question, and super fun thing to just talk about. It's not for me. I am not the customer. Uh, it gives me flashbacks to using Uber Pool in college, and just you never know what you're going to get. Who you're going to be sitting next to, and that it's I would say it's a certain type of customer. I think there's plenty of those people out there, and I think what I love about this is that there was kind of some tongue in cheek humor from Joel, who we've both had the privilege of spending some time with. Super sharp guy, understands the industry as well as anybody. Is really making an impact and putting his fingerprints on our industry, which is fantastic. So they had the tagline, because nothing says road trip like 10 strangers, one bathroom, and a dream, which is just fantastic because it shows the awareness of like what this is. I think it's great. I think it's going to get a lot of use. I think it's going to get talked about a lot. Like I said, I never plan on using this, and I am a Harvest Host customer and member. So I believe in what they're doing, but it's kind of provide some commentary on our industry as well, is that camping isn't for everybody. It's for a lot of people, but it's not for everybody. And this is something that I think that follows along that path of not being for everybody. That sounds like a nightmare to me, of sharing such a tight confined, even if it's a big rig, a big fifth wheel. That's like a tiny home. Like I don't even want to share that with my family a lot of times, let alone a stranger. So that's my take on it. I'm super excited to follow along and see where it goes and see the adoption. I believe in it, but funny and interesting, just not for me as a consumer.
Yeah, totally see it. I mean, the way I look at it is I sort of a tool or an app that would allow folks to connect each other would be really interesting. I think there is that fear of even solo camping is not necessarily something a lot of people feel a ton of comfort in doing, at least not for their first or second time doing it. So I think the ways to kind of vet folks and just have a better understanding of like who are these other people that I could be potentially pulling this RV with would be interesting if they can continue to sort of build out ways for Harvest Host customers to almost like match with each other based on the type of experience and how they like to travel and really interesting and also just great data for Harvest Host to have as a part of their network. Joel is no stranger to they've spun up so many other sort of business units or done acquisitions of things like escapees and Boondockers Welcome and Brit Camp or Brit Stops and all the rest of them. So they're no strangers to sort of building out these other business units. This is for sure a unique one in this sense, but super excited to sort of see how this develops and was a really fun announcement we wanted to make sure we included in this week's news. Next on the docket today comes from a familiar player in the RV industry, from Horizon Management. They had an announcement yesterday in Woodall's about sort of a new management service offering, and we'll sort of give a little bit of commentary about Horizon for folks who maybe are a little unfamiliar, but then want to really use this as sort of a opportunity to talk about how things are shifting. And I think Horizon is really doing a good job of recognizing kind of what's happening and what's coming. So launched in 2004, they are a full service third party management company, but I don't know that I can necessarily say that anymore with this new announcement in the sense that they've really spun out two different sides of the business with their Ascend and Terrain service line offerings. So they've still got their traditional full service third party management unit for folks who have no interest in operating their campground. You can hire somebody like Horizon to come in and soup to nuts handle it all. But they've recognized that there may be folks on the real estate side of the business who are coming over from the multifamily or space like you did, Matt, who want to kind of get in and understand the business, maybe get their hands dirty, have maybe a decent understanding of how the accounting works or how they want to run the park, but need help in certain operational aspects. So what they've done is really piecemeal a lot of the services that they offer. Horizon has a really in-house marketing agency that they use for all of their clients. Obviously, they have their sort of operational excellence as well, and I think around kind of 8 to 10 different services that they offer. And now they've decided to say, hey, you don't have to come in and give us the whole thing. We really see an opportunity to give a lot of our services in different facets. So, Matt, what do you make of this change at Horizon? And like I posed, what do you think this says about the industry and kind of where things are headed moving forward?
I think it's really smart by the Horizon team, and I don't know them super well. We've connected a little bit. Scott Foos over there. I follow him on social media. He's always posting great stuff. I see that they are a very innovative, kind of cutting edge, industry leading uh, team in this space. So shout out to them. I think it makes a ton of sense because it's a hard sell to sell third party management. I think in anything that's hospitality oriented, especially in our business, it's so mom and pop oriented and dominated. So we it's such an interesting subject to discuss third party management of these types of businesses and assets with such predominantly mom and pop owners. you know these businesses are family businesses. They're the legacy of the owners. You do see some mom and pop owners stepping away, and maybe it doesn't make sense to sell, so they find a third party manager. I think it's more common that these third party managers are building relationships with kind of the new age of owners, private equity and investment companies and real estate firms. But even so, it's such a tough enterprise level sale that it's a marriage. It's a business marriage. You're hiring somebody to be very hands-on with your asset. So to me, to maybe offer something that's more a la carte, a smaller lift, a more narrow service allows you to start building that relationship in a more incremental way without kind of getting married to start. So from a business perspective, I think it makes a ton of sense. More offerings, more diverse offerings, more options for the clients and the consumers, if you will, uh, that these management companies are serving. So my understanding is that they're a terrific operator and a really well built team and organization. So I have to assume that this will probably work very well. So excited to stay tuned and good luck. Good luck to the team on this kind of new endeavor. It's exciting.
Yeah, really, really well said. And Horizon has typically been known for higher end properties, a group sort of portfolio, come in and manage multiple properties. And I think this kind of bridges the gap between a lot of third party management companies don't want to do consulting, and probably for good reason, right? Everybody would kind of just take them up on that offer instead of going the full third party management route. I think this bridges that line really well, just who are the players, and what's the likelihood of the number of those kind of groups available. There just isn't that many of them, and there are multiple really incredible third party management companies that are obviously all fighting for the same business. And I think this is really smart to open themselves up, to position themselves in the market this way, and it just gets them in front of more high quality people and operators. So yeah, congrats to Scott and Lindsay and the whole team over at Horizon. Really incredible announcement, and yeah, really excited to see how things develop. Our next story is a little bit kind of a trending news topic. We've heard this has been a deep topic of conversation in our industry for the last couple of weeks. And of course, all over the country, this is getting great traction in news, talking, of course, about the sort of US and Canada relationship, really affecting our industry in outdoor hospitality and hospitality at large. We saw a really interesting story and piece of news from Pathfinder Ventures this week. They put out they do these sort of reports a few times a year. This is not necessarily your traditional sort of financial reporting, although Pathfinder is a publicly traded company both in Canada and the U.S. I love their ticker symbol RV in the Canada market, so love the branding on that front. But they put out these sort of investor updates or financial reports every so often. And this one that they recently put out in spring 2025 was all about really the Canadian reservation data. They've got 3 properties that they own in Canada. They've also got 3 that they manage, and they've seen reservations increase 48% year over year at their Canadian properties, which I think tells us a couple of things. One, the campers in Canada still love camping. They're still doing it. They're still making the reservations. They're just not making them in the U.S. They're staying home. They're making that travel more closely to home in those locations that they have. Looking ahead, they also indicated advanced reservations for upcoming months are also already up about 10%. So good data sort of in the near future. Really high increase. So obviously almost 50% increase is substantial for them. But you got to kind of look at this as, look, they although they're I would say one of the sort of property companies in Canada that has more than one location, and it's a good piece of data. We're only really talking about 6 properties here between the 3 that they own and the 3 that they manage. So a little bit of good data on that side, obviously a little bit um, concerning of sorts for properties here in the US, obviously here in New York, Vermont, really, all over the Northeast here. A lot of Canadian travel coming in, as well as, to places like Florida, where Canadian travelers will come and often go down and make that bit of a travel. So this may be sort of a sign of more things to come with Canadians canceling their reservations or making changes. But Matt, how do you really see this news, and how this fits into recent news and events?
It's a mixed bag in my mind. It's good to see that the demand is there. It's just not coming to the US anymore, or for the time being. You mentioned, there's a grain of salt here that it is a pretty small sample size. It's not not insignificant though. It's it shows how politics and international relations and everything trickles down. We're seeing a real effect in our industry. We see it firsthand. We're in Syracuse, New York right now, not far from Canada. We see in the Adirondacks and kind of in North Country, as we call it, in upstate New York here, that some parks cater completely to Canadian customer bases. And that's what always scared me as an investor. When I started looking at parks in the Adirondacks, it was coming into the COVID era, and there were parks that were completely shut down because they were seasonal parks rented to full season RVers that were 100% Canadian, and the Canadians could not cross the border. So you have this industry that at a macro level has terrific fundamentals, incredible demand outpacing supply. And then it COVID exacerbated that, but that was the story for decades and decades and decades. Campgrounds are full, especially in the Northeast. That's just the way it is. But then you see this micro effect from park to park that you go 100 miles south, and if that's too far for Canadians and it's an American customer base, that park is having the best year it ever had in its history, in its maybe 60-year history. 100 miles north, the park is completely empty because their customer base cannot cross the border. I looked at that and it made me nervous as an investor looking at parks for sale in the Adirondacks. On one side, I said to myself, well, that's probably never going to happen again. Like, there's probably never going to be a world event like that, or at least it'll be a long time, or that's such like a minute set of circumstances that if it's a good investment and it, you know, goes to zero for 1 year, like hopefully over a long time horizon, 20 years, still a great investment. But then something like this comes along where it's obviously, luckily, it's not a pandemic where it's literally a life and death scenario. This is politics and tensions, but it's having an effect on these parks that have Canadian customer bases, a very serious effect. And I thought it was interesting that on the Pathfinder Ventures website, they directly referenced tensions between the US and Canada. And a little anecdote, my father-in-law was and mother-in-law were in Europe and happened to be traveling and met some Canadians, and it became a topic of conversation of how Canadians don't want to come to the US. It's yeah, I stay out of politics. I'm not a political person, but you see these things happen and it's having a real effect on our industry.
It's
you
real
know
for a lot of folks.
right, you can kind of have your denial and like try think, oh, everything's insulated and it's politics, it's only 4 years, we'll have a new president and whatever your politics are, but it's having an effect. And we've had multiple stories now over the last few weeks about federal lands, layoffs at national parks and national forests. That, I mean, we didn't put it on our agenda for today, but there was a story that came out yesterday about the federal lands going up for sale, which would change the landscape. It's the land that's in discussion is around national parks and national forests. So that's my takeaway, is that all these different little political things, whether it's international relations or layoffs or government spending cuts, we're seeing real tangible effects on our industry, and not good ones. So
Yeah, really well said. I know a lot of obviously great folks on the sort of management and ownership side of the business as well that are being hit really hard, and people having to even lay seasonal workers for the summer off because they don't anticipate being busy. They have to open to try and keep the business afloat, as you said. But this is going to be a really challenging environment if things don't kind of reverse or change its tide. Obviously, this doesn't affect all of the industry, but these parks that do have such heavy reliance in these areas are kind of grasping for air at this moment, and it's sad to see. These are great parks that didn't really do anything wrong operating the business wise to deserve having this kind of change. But as you said, Matt, well put, that it's affecting everybody in a lot of ways, and for sort of reasons that I think could have been prevented. So really, yeah, interesting data point from Pathfinder with this reporting. We'll obviously continue to sort of monitor how the situation plays out. Folks on the traditional hospitality side of the industry are also having effects in these same markets. This is not just hitting campgrounds. This is hotels and all of the sort of tourism businesses in these towns and areas. So we'll sort of cross our fingers and hold our breath and hope that things change in time for camping season here. And then to round out the stories from today, we're back to national parks. We've covered this again a couple times since we launched Good Morning Outdoors. This is a story from Grand Canyon National Park announcing that their camping fees are increasing more than 65%. And that really is kind of a big headline. You read 65%, you almost get, kind of panicked in a sense of like, holy cow, how high did they raise these prices? A little bit misleading, I think, in the sense that rates at this property are about $16 a night is what they were. They opened this up for sort of comment and public opinion over the last year and only recently made this change. Rates have been raised to $30 a night. When we look at, and Matt, you're a big data guy, I am too, of sort of private versus public tent sites. That is still so incredibly cheap, especially for the national park has three separate sort of campgrounds and base camp landing spots. To be that close to something like that and only have to pay $30 a night, that is still such an incredible bargain in deal. They hadn't raised rates in almost 20 years. I mean, this is kind of long overdue. What do you make of these fees increasing at the national park?
Surprised they didn't increase them a lot more and a long time ago, honestly. It gives us an interesting angle into the dynamics between public campsites and private campsites. Uh, we have access to a lot of awesome data on the private side. Shout out to CampSpot with their monthly reports that you get through OHI,
Correct.
the Outdoor Hospitality Industry Association. And so we took a peek at that data. They do a really awesome monthly report. The ADR, average daily rate for tent campsites, is almost double what Grand Canyon National Park is changing or charging, which is crazy because this is national data, not national, like Western United States national parks. I think it's not crazy to say that's some of the best camping you can find, especially in Grand Canyon National Park. I mean, that's a global
Landmark. Yeah.
landmark and just incredible place to go camping. I think it opens up discussion around why there's such a discrepancy and just it ties back to our other stories of national park budget cuts. That's a part that does make me nervous is I think a lot of times in national parks and in public camping, it can be a very budget conscious consumer. So they may look at, well, you're doubling my rate, we're increasing it 65%. You got to check the math on that. But you know, if that's coupled with staff cuts and maintenance cuts and all the things that we've heard about, there could be some consequences there. If you're doubling the rate, but the product gets worse, which I think is a very real possibility. And it's a shame, as a private campground owner, I don't own or operate anything near the Grand Canyon, but globally and then from a macro standpoint, if the public sites get more expensive and lower quality, that's a positive financially for a lot of private campground owners. That's a debatable statement because sometimes and a lot of times the draw for a private campsite is people camp privately, but then they venture out to the national park or to the state park for their daily activities. But for whatever reason, they want either the security or perceived security or
Amenities.
amenities
Mhm.
that a private campground can offer over a public campground. So there's nuance there for sure, but and you look at these, you look and especially in the West, we have some beautiful state parks in New York and in the Northeast and in the East, but you look at them as a business owner or an entrepreneur, and you immediately see that they are hemorrhaging money. They are not profit centers. They're constantly repaving roads and repaving parking lots and building new bathhouses and adding cabins. And they are absolutely not profitable. They are hemorrhaging money. So it's good to see that hopefully occupancy can stay up and they can kind of mitigate some of that deficit that all of these campgrounds quite frankly have to be operating at. I mean, it's a great natural resource in our beautiful country, so I hope it does nothing but you know accentuate that and improve access to that and improve funding and all that. But with everything else that's going on, it's a question.
Absolutely. Yeah, really really great location. Really interesting to see this move kind of come. Obviously, this is timely, right right before the peak of the season, and Memorial Day kind of kicks things off. So yeah, really interested to see how this really affects their occupancy and data moving forward. Wow, that was quite the rundown today. I think we got through like 6 or 7 stories. This may be the most jam-packed week we've had so far. Really hope everybody tunes in next week. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we will have a little bit of a special guest host with Matt out. I'm at a great conference. I'm sure he'll have some great insights the following week. But hope you'll join me and our special guest that we'll tease throughout the week next Thursday on the show. Hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week. Share this with a friend if you found this valuable, and we'd really appreciate all of the listenership and support we've gotten thus far. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.